The Don River Railway in Devonport is Tasmania's premier heritage rail organisation. Established in 1973, the group preserves steam and diesel locomotives from many eras of the state's history, along with being a leader in carriage restoration in Australia. The railway also has a scenic 3.2 kilometre line from Don to Coles Beach on the former Melrose line that takes passengers on a journey back to the days of passenger trains in Tasmania. On the weekend of the 14th to 16th of February 2025, the Don River Railway celebrated its 50th anniversary of operations, which included a number of visiting engines coming for the show. These included C22 from the Tasmanian Transport Museum in Glenorchy, APT number 3 from the West Coast Wilderness Railway on the west coast, and on the 2-foot gauge, Wee Georgie Wood from Tullah and Krauss number 1 from Sheffield, along with a cameo appearance from Tasrail. The big event saw continuous shuttle trips run throughout the show, with the visiting engines and the railway's resident diesel locomotives covering the services. There was plenty of other things to see and do, along with a spectacular triple header. All this and much more in 762 media's coverage of all 3 days of the Don River Railway's 50th anniversary celebrations. Our video starts on Friday, February 14th at Don Station. Here we'll be riding behind C22, the Tasmanian Transport Museum's 260 built in 1902, from the Don River Railway's base here to Coles Beach, the other end of the line. We are riding in some vintage 6-wheel passenger cars that were built in the late 1800s for the Launceston and Western Railway and also the Tasmanian Government Railways, beautifully restored by volunteers here at the Don River Railway. On the right hand side you can see Dubs number 8, CCS 25 and M4, the Don River Railway's 3 regular stablemates in regular traffic at the Don River Railway. None of these locos were in traffic for the 50th anniversary, however, as all locos were either under maintenance or getting overhauls. The line the railway runs on is the former Melrose line that was built in 1916 to carry minerals from quarries down near Melrose and Barrington. The section of track down to Barrington was opened in 1923 but closed in 1928. The line down to Melrose stayed open until 1963, hauling stone and limestone. The following year, the line was lifted between Melrose and Don Township just before the rebuilding of the Bass Highway, which now crosses part of where the line used to go. The rest of the line, back to Don Junction, was left in place and was eventually restored by the Don River Railway between 1973 and 1975 as the Van Diemen Light Railway Society. The society was formed to preserve and operate examples of Tasmanian locomotives and rolling stock from the entire state, with examples from the Tasmanian Government Railways and also the Emu Bay Railway, now in service. From 1986 to 2005, the Don River Railway was also allowed to run on the main line, with numerous trips with locomotives M4, MA2, CCS 23 and 25 and Dubs number 8, along with some of their diesels. The railway currently plans to reconnect their line to the main line at Coles Beach and return mainline trains very soon, operating excursions from Devonport through to Penguin. This section of track was covered in our paper train video, which you can see in the top right corner. On arrival at Coles Beach, C22 runs around and then waits for app number 3 to cross. Who would have thought that an apt engine from the Mount Lyell Mining Company and a Tasmanian Government Railway C-Class would once again cross each other for the first time since the 1950s. This operation occurred down at Strahan when the Tasmanian Government Railways had their line from Zeehan down to Strahan to connect the Emu Bay Railway and the Mount Lyell line. We will now return to Don Township behind Apt number 3 in carriage DB5 from the former Emu Bay Railway. This has been beautifully restored by the Don River Railway and was part of numerous excursions on the main line back in the 90s and early 2000s, including the famous triple headers of the EBR Centenary in 1997. Apt number 3 was built in 1896 for the Mount Lyell Mining Company by Dubs & Co in Glasgow, Scotland. It operated during the line's entire life from 1896 to 1963. Now back at Don Township, we take a look around the yard. Apt number 3 runs around its train first though, in preparation for another trip up to Coles Beach with more passengers. MA2 was in the early 1950s for the Tasmanian Government Railways as locomotive M1. It was rebuilt as MA2 in 1958. Running on a 2-foot gauge demonstration line were locomotives Wee Georgie Wood and Krauss number 1. Wee Georgie Wood was built in 1924 by John Fowler and Company in Leeds, England, and was used to connect the township of Tullah with the rest of Tasmania at Farrell Siding, where it connected with the Emu Bay Railway. It is now preserved by the Wee Georgie Wood Steam Railway, which operates a 1.5 kilometre long line in the township of Tullah. Z-Class Z3, or 2112, has been lovingly restored by volunteers in its ATN Tasrail colours from the year 2000. Another diesel preserved here is ZA1, or 2114. ZB14, the first ZB class to arrive in Tassie in the 80s, is being repainted. These locomotives are either privately owned or owned by the railway, and are being restored by enthusiasts who are into diesels. C22 is currently being serviced ready for its runs later in the day. Near the Don Memorial Hall, a number of traction engines are on display in steam. We are now back on board behind C22 and we cross Y6 at Don Township before heading up to Coles Beach. We've come up here to see the last two trains of the day. Y6, built in 1971, is hauling the last train of the day with 3 green Suburban cars from the Tasmanian Government Railways era. Meanwhile, C22 puts on a show for the camera as it passes the whistleboard as it heads back to Don Township to end its day. The classic English electric of Y6 is heard beautifully on this run back to Don Township as we end our day of riding trains on the railway. Y6 arrived at the railway in 1992 and was restored in 1996 and has been operating on the main line and at the Don River Railway ever since. It has recently undergone a repaint, and it is a credit to the volunteers of the Don River Railway who have done a superb job putting it back into tiger stripes colours once again. One interesting thing to note is the Don River Railway actually has 2 Y classes, the other one being Y8. It is currently stored for parts and is not operated since the Australian national days of the 1990s. It's used as a source of spare parts for Y6 to keep it operational. As we pass the workshops, apps number 3 and C22 are being prepared for something very special, which we'll have a look at in a minute. For the Don River Railway volunteers, this is a good start to their big weekend. But it's not the end of the Friday operations though. In the evening, the railway put on a triple header special train, using all 3 operational steam locomotives. The Tasmanian Transport Museum C22, the Don River Railway's Fowler 060, and apps number 3 from the West Coast Wilderness Railway triple headed to Coles Beach and return. And once the train had returned to Don Township, the passengers would enjoy a roast dinner at the 2 Tracks Function Centre. After a 10-minute stopover, the 3 engines depart Coles Beach heading back to Don, ending a spectacular first day of this big weekend. Day 2, Saturday, February 15th, 2025, sees us at Devonport, the closest major town to the Don River Railway, to see Tasrail 2050 class locos 2052 and 2053 heading light engine up to Coles Beach for display as part of the celebrations. Meanwhile, at Don Township, Krauss number 1 and Wee Georgie Wood are steaming up next to ZP1. As said before, this locomotive was rebuilt in 1996 from a ZB class. The difference between the M and MA class locos are the driving wheels, as you can see. These are from Australian standard Garretts and allowed the MA class to run up the northeast line very easily. Also on display are Z2, H7, M3, and CCS 25, all around the turntable at the entrance. This signal box is actually from Devonport and is completely original and well worth a look at. Today, Y6 would only operate for half the day, as former Emu Bay Railway locomotive 1002 would operate for the second half of the day. It is arriving here empty cars from Coles Beach, beginning the rotation of services for the day. Today, app number 3 would be with the vintage cars, and C22 would be with the very heavy green Suburban carriages. Speaking of C22, we're going to ride behind it once again in the Suburban cars for a run up to Coles Beach to check out what's going on up there. The C-Class locomotives were the second class of engines built for the Tasmanian Government Railways, with the first batch of locomotives arriving in the 1890s. C22 was part of the second batch of engines which arrived in 1902. It operated until 1958 when it was withdrawn from service. It was retained by the Tasmanian Government Railways for the Tasmanian Transport Museum for display and eventual operation by that group. It was restored to service in 1983 and operated until 1995. Between 1995 and 2008, it received another restoration and has operated ever since. However, will be going out of service during the first half of 2025 for its third overhaul. It has come just in time too, as locomotive M5, the Tasmanian Transport Museum's other steam locomotive, has just returned to steam as of March 2025 during this recording. App number 3 now arrives from Coles Beach with the vintage cars. Arrive into Coles Beach, you can see in the distance the 2050 class locos on display for the public. We'll also pass Y6 here, which as soon as we arrive, will depart for Don Township. We're now going to go trackside to see a number of scenes of all three trains operating on the line. First up is app number 3 on its third run of the day. Now it's C22's turn. The weather had turned foul, so the locomotive struggled on this return trip with the very heavy 3 cars. Next up, Y6 with AAR2 and DB5. App number 3 now returns to Don Township. When we recorded this, we did not actually know that 1002 was going to be hauling the green set, so it was quite a surprise when it went past us as it approached Coles Beach. Y6 now departs, heading back to Don Township, where it would be taken off the train and app number 3 would take over this set. We're now going to ride behind the EBR locomotive 1002 as we head back to Don Township. The other locomotive running on the 2-foot gauge demonstration line is Redwater Creek Steam Railway locomotive, Krauss number 1. One of the interesting facts about this locomotive is that it's actually 2 locomotives combined into one. Locomotives 5682 and 5800 were combined in the 1970s by the Second River Tramway into this engine. It operates on the first weekend of the month at Sheffield and is a star attraction at that town's Steamfest, which happens over the Labor Day long weekend. Wee Georgie Wood runs twice a month between October and April each year. C22 Media will cover this railway in its own video about Wee Georgie Wood, which will come out very soon. But here's a snippet. We once again take a brief look at the traction engines near the Don Memorial Hall. A number of these traction engines are either privately owned or part of Pern's Steamworld, which we'll also have a look at in another video. We're now going to head back to Coles Beach behind C22 again. At Coles Beach, we're going to go have a look at Locomotives 2052 and 2053, once the locomotive has run around, of course. As said in our video of Tasrail's coal train, the 2050 class were built in 1978 as 2150 class locos in Queensland. They arrived in 2011 in Tasmania and operated until 2015. With loco shortages from the TR class, they returned to traffic in 2018. Initially, only 2051 and 2054 returned to traffic though. (2052) and 2053 were rebuilt in 2022 and 2023. And were returned to service by 2025 after numerous amounts of testing. They have also been repainted in full Tasrail colours instead of the Queensland Railways colours that they were in previously.
They didn't have numbers, they just had a break.
After spending the day on display, the two locos returned to Devonport for stabling. Not long after, 10:02 departs on its last run of the day after crossing C22 at Coles Beach. will once again ride behind this classic little colonial mogul from Bay of Peacock and head back to Don Township, ending our second day of coverage of the Don River Railway's magnificent event. Sunday, February the 16th, 2025, was the last day of Don River Railway's 50th anniversary. We are at the workshops of the railway as C22 steams up, ready for its final day of operations at the railway. Inside, there is a lot of things to see and do by the public, not normally accessible. Outside, the 830 class 866 owned by Grant Highland and ZB14 owned by Nick Shackleton are both on display. Kyle Stennings' ZA1 is currently undergoing gradual restoration and will be repainted into Australian national colours when completed. ZB14 is already halfway through its repaint into QR colours, which the ZBs actually started service in Tasmania in 1987. One of the railway's more impressive restorations is the Royal Carriage AA+1. This is being lovingly restored by the volunteers of the railway, having been formerly a chicken coop back in the 1970s. It has been restored to as it was when King George V rode in it in the 1920s. The first service of the day for today is hauled by Apps number 3, once again hauling the vintage cars. One of the most unusual combinations at the railway was the sight of the Wee Georgie Wood, the Krauss and C22 together. Not long after, Wee Georgie Wood hauled the Krauss up and down the demonstration line. For an 040, it's very powerful. The little 040 well tank has been operating at its preserved railway in Tullah since 1987.
Thank you. Here we go. Quite responsive.
The traction engines are also being steamed up, including this big Roby. Inside, these scratch-built DQ class locos run on Steve Williams's Deloraine layout, which is in 00 scale, but with 16.5mm gauge track, the scaling is correct. Apps number 3 now departs for Coles Beach. We're now going to once again see the trains running through the beautiful landscape closer to Township. Watch out for the snake in the shot of C22 running tender first to Coles Beach as well. For our last segment of this video, we'll ride behind C22 to Coles Beach and back on what ended up being the final run of the weekend.
right? I think we might have to have a look when we move over the loop.
After crossing Y6, C22 departs heading back for Don Township. Sticking brakes on the second car, which is the one we were in, meant that we stalled near the first crossing. After a block of wood was placed to fix these brakes, we were able to continue on again. Unfortunately, an unknown arsonist started fires along the trackside, which meant that all services were cancelled after this trip. Unfortunately, when we approached Don Township, the locomotive stalled again, this time because it ran out of steam. To amend this, app number 3 rushed down to couple onto C22 to double head the train into Don Township to allow 1002 and X4 to race out to put the fires out. After this spectacular arrival, it was officially the end of the weekend, as all services had been cancelled after this because of the fires. Luckily, there was only an hour to go. With their work done, C22 and app number 3 are both getting shut down in the workshop. Preparations began for their transport back home, with app number 3 returning to Queenstown on the Tuesday and C22 on the Wednesday. Our final shot at the Diamond River Railway for this visit is Z3 arriving back into the workshop after spending the weekend outside. However, this wasn't the end of our coverage for the weekend. The two 2050 class locos had to be transported back to East Tamar in Launceston. They were attached to Tasrail's number 35 train, which runs earlier on Sundays, which meant we were able to see it in daylight for a number of scenes. We start here in Devonport, departing before the cement train. The number 35 train and its compatriot, the 36 train, are intermodal services which run between Burnie and Brighton near Hobart. Our next shot is at Sprayton, just south of Devonport. Our final shot of the weekend is the giant 5-loco consist along with the Tasrail geometry wagon right behind the 2050s, passing through Dawson's Siding just north of Railton. We hope you enjoyed this big video of the Don River Railway's 50th anniversary celebrations. Thank you to all of the volunteers involved in this massive event, and a huge congratulations to the Don River Railway for pulling it off. Please like, comment and subscribe, and we will see you next time on 762 Media.